Hello, welcome to Political Smackdown. Your regular teacher, Betsy Wells, is not here today. I'm your substitute, but the rest of the class is with us today. We have former Mayor Mike Philback, former member of the House of Representatives, Andy Debman, and former state senator and all-around good guy, Wes Westmoreland. Gentlemen, let's get started. Last summer, U.S. Senator Tom Tillis went rogue and wisely voted against Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. This sent the president into a rage and forced Tillis's retirement. That leaves North Carolina with a vacancy in the U.S. Senate this November. Now the race is on between Governor Roy Cooper and relatively unknown Republican Michael Whatley. The election is still over 6 months away, which is an eternity in politics. What is the status of the race? What's going to happen? Andy, get us started.
Well, of course, Roy Cooper's going to win.
All right.
Well,
That's good news.
That's good news.
Is that what you said about Jim Hunt in '84?
Yeah, I did. Anyway, besides all that, it's like you said, Roger, it is an eternity in politics. A lot of stuff can happen. You know, I was thinking about this question earlier this morning about how things change. We thought we had Tom Tillis 6 years ago.
Cunningham had him beat.
It was no doubt about it. He was going to clean his office out. And of all things, he goes out and takes a girlfriend into his wife's marital bed. Can you imagine? And thought nobody would know.
Yep.
And he was seen everywhere. They bought millions of dollars worth of TV and everything else. Everybody knew who he was. Yep. And to do something stupid like that, it's just like with John Edwards. It's the same thing. I mean, folks, if you're going to run for politics, keep your pants zipped up. I mean, especially if you're getting ready to win. I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever known. But Mr. Whatley, outside the party structure, nobody really knows him. Now, he's been Donald Trump's national RNC chairman. He's been in North Carolina. I mean, he's done everything within the Republican Party, I guess. Guys that really that's worth anything.
Right.
He has had any clout or anything. But outside of your regular party type people, the average guy out here doesn't know him. I guarantee you, most people know who Roy Cooper is by now. I mean, he was in the House for years, then he went to the state Senate, then he went to Attorney General, then he went 2 terms in governor. So I would say by now, he should have name recognition. So like I said earlier, I was being a little facetious, but I really think right now it's Roy's to lose.
Right, I think so. Some of the polls are showing him up by double digits. So, but it's a long time to November. Wes, what are your views?
Well, yeah, you mentioned the problems the Democrats have. I think this is one where Tillis was a fatality of the Republican circular firing squad. The state party censured him in 2003. He survived the censure in 2005, 2023 and 25. Sorry. Whatley easily won our primary, Gastonia native. Last I saw it was about a 14-point race. Right. So it's right now the Senate Leadership Fund Republican group is expected to put $71 million on Whatley. That's the second highest planned expenditure in the country. The Democrat Senate Majority PAC, I'm sure, is going to do similar. But yes, Andy, most know Roy Cooper, and I think that's what we're going to run on. His record as governor. Most remember that how restricted we were during COVID, the most restricted state in the nation. Yet we were in the second half of COVID deaths. How he's mishandled the hurricane relief funds, running up a $221 million deficit with steel homes undone, more vetoes, more veto overrides than any governor in the state. He's against school choice. So yes, people do know Roy Cooper, and yes, I think that's going to come back to haunt him. It will be a tight race, make no doubt about that.
And even those current polls that show Cooper up have about 12% undecided.
Well,
and that's a big hunk of voters.
He's going to run a Spanberger 2.0. A moderate that as soon as he's in office, we're going to find out differently if he survives the election.
All right. Michael?
Well, I tried to just answer your questions as simply as I could, and Andy, one of the words you used, on status of the race, right now it would appear that it's Cooper's to lose. There was one PPP, a Democratic poll, that showed him in March only 3-point-something points ahead, which was within the margin of error, but as you all have noted, numerous other polls have been from 7 points to double digits, that Cooper appears to be ahead right now.
Well, and people really aren't focused on this thing
Right.
yet.
No.
They're really not.
Roy Cooper has never lost a statewide race, but I'd point out to you, neither had Jim Hunt in 1984. And we have a split electorate. Our electorate of those who decide elections seems to decide for Democrats for governor and Republicans for senator most of the time in recent decades. So I wouldn't say it's over, but I do say it's an uphill climb for Whatley. Wes mentioned the $71 million of GOP super PAC just this week, said they're going to put into the race.
And you buy a lot of name recognition with $71 million.
Yeah, he'll be outspent by Cooper. I don't think anybody doubts that, but I think he's going to have plenty of money. He's going to have at least 100 and something million, if not 200 and something million spent on it. It's going to be an expensive race.
Right.
Most in the country.
But one thing I would say, though, you brought up about Governor Hunt. There is a book written about that race called Hunt Helms. Excellent book.
It is.
I would suggest anybody, they have it at the library here in Cleveland County, over in Sheriff, right in Wes's neighborhood. Excellent book. And it makes you understand what really happened.
Well, and Helms had some advantages Whatley doesn't have. He was an incumbent, and he had the Eastern Democrats that were farmers on his side because he helped them with their tobacco subsidies, if y'all remember
Absolutely,
that.
he did.
I'll never forget Jesse Helms one time saying, when people criticized him for supporting tobacco supports for the Eastern North Carolina farmer, he said, when they quit picking on tobacco, I'll quit supporting subsidies for tobacco, or something like that.
Yeah.
But my point is, what Whatley's going to use that 70-something million and other money to do is two things. One is to get his name recognition to be a household word.
Right.
And that's enough money to do that, as you pointed out, Roger. And secondly, as Wes alluded, they're going to do everything they can to demonize and make what looks like to Democrats to be advantages for Roy Cooper with the general electorate that decides election, try to make those be a negative. So I wouldn't say it's over, but I would say that there's a big uphill climb for Mr. Whatley.
But one thing to keep in mind, the perception of Trump in October
Right.
is probably going to have as much to do with that race as any single thing.
I was getting ready to ask. He has tied himself, Whatley has tied himself to Trump. Certainly that's an advantage in a Republican primary. In a general election,
It may or may not be.
may or may not.
Well, the other thing too would be gas prices. I mean,
There's so many
there's a
international
lot of
factors.
stuff.
A lot of things that in early April, when we're taping this, that may or may not be the case in October, 6 months
true.
from now.
Right, absolutely. And you're right, Cooper has never lost a general election, and Michael Whatley has never won one, but November is a long way off, and things can happen.
I guess if I was putting a positive spin on that for Whatley, he's due for a win and Cooper's due for a loss.
We can look at it that way. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, a number of civil rights groups have filed suit to stop Trump's executive order to strictly limit mail-in ballots, and I should add also a number of state attorneys general. Some critics on both the left and the right have criticized the White House, claiming that it is an attempt to nationalize elections. Critics point out that even Donald Trump votes by mail. What does the Constitution say about the federal government's role in elections? Is there a real problem with mail-in ballots? Is the federal executive intruding into states' rights? Wes, you're a strong believer in states' rights. What are your views?
Well, let's start with your last question. The answer is absolutely.
Okay.
The Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. It is a state issue, not a federal issue. That said, Mr. Harris, when's the last time you put some cash in an envelope and mailed it?
Not often.
I've even had checks washed by letter carriers in Charlotte. We could stop with that. Are there problems? Maybe. I don't know that there's a legitimate concern. You know, mail-in voting is critical for states like Alaska and Arizona. I don't know if there's a practical way to hold elections otherwise. But I think if we're going to do mail-in, we've got to have a deadline for ballots, and it's got to be maintained.
Okay.
I do think it opens the door for fraud, certainly questions, but let's go back to a Constitution. Section 4, the rest of that sentence goes on to say, but Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations except in the places of choosing senators. So one could argue that Congress has the right to do this, but the executive branch clearly does not. I'm certainly against nationalizing the election, but mail-in should be limited. It should have election day deadline. It must be enforced. And if the president doesn't like it, he can work to amend the Constitution. There's a process.
Well, first he's going to have to acknowledge there is a Constitution.
So what I'm hearing then is there's two issues. One is mail-in ballots and their legitimacy, and the other is, can the executive control that? And
That question's clear.
that one's it. All right. Mike, what are your views?
Well, Wes stole some of my thunder. I had copied and pasted Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, so I won't reread it
All right.
since Wes went through it, but he made the points that it's a state issue and Congress can change it. And actually, the Supreme Court has, no matter the context of who's on it, been pretty liberal in allowing Congress to change it, as opposed to the states' rights part of it through the years. But I had a question I thought Mr. Dedman would be the best answer about mail-in ballots and how much we ought to use them. And I agree that for disabled people who can't get out, military personnel, foreign citizens living abroad, there has to be some mail-in ballots.
Right.
I don't think they should be widespread, and I think they ought to have to be backed by election day as a general rule. But ask yourself, Mr. Dedman, if you won $500 million in the Powerball lottery, would you put the winning ticket in an envelope and put it in the U.S. Postal Service and trust them to send you your money, or would you take it to Raleigh?
I'd be in my car so fast you would be. And see, and that's the problem. Mike, the U.S. Postal Service is not like when your dad was a mail carrier. It used to be, I guarantee you, your dad had it timed out. Everybody knew when he was going to be there, and everything got delivered. It is not like that now. We've got, like has been pointed out, there are some places, people, you've got to have the mail-in ballot. Right. But I have never been a favor of it being statewide or nation or anything. I just don't trust the mail service at this point. I'd trust Amazon more than I would them.
Sure.
Right.
Well, a polling place where you have bipartisan supervision by election officials and observation of poll watchers is the best way to ensure, along with voter ID that we now have, that the ballots are completed by the registered voter and deposited as they ought to be. And I will remind you all, and this is going to be a quote from the Democrat North Carolina Board of Elections. In 2018, in the 9th Congressional District of North Carolina, which initially won by Harris, you remember the guy that got put in jail, the State Board of Elections overturned that election due to, quote, concerted fraudulent activities related to absentee by mail ballots. And so it is and can be a problem. So I know we have to have some, but I hope they'll be kept limited.
All right. Gentlemen, let's take a break and we'll come back and continue our discussion right after this.
Chef Paul Prudhomme once said, "You don't need a silver fork to eat good food." Well, on Cleveland County Kitchen, we don't have a silver fork, but we sure do serve up lots of good food. Hi, I'm Deborah Blanton. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen. Each month, we offer a complete farm-to-table experience. We visit local growers, we learn about nutrition, and wrap things up with wonderful meals prepared by our guest chefs. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for the next Cleveland County Kitchen.
As Cleveland County's premier event facility, LeGrand Center is the ideal location for any event. The LeGrand Center is located 45 minutes west of Charlotte, 45 minutes north of Spartanburg, and just a little over an hour east of Asheville. Whether you're a small business looking for a place for an off-site meeting or a bride looking for that special location for her wedding, LeGrand Center is the perfect place for you.
All right, welcome back. We were talking about mail-in ballots, and I've got this question that kind of as a follow-up, fellas. Why is Trump doing this? Does he truly believe that there is that much fraud in mail-in ballots? Does he truly believe that, or is it just an attempt to undermine confidence in the election so that, you know, as some Democrats say, when he loses in November, that he can bring question about it?
Did you miss January 6th?
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
but
right.
Well, I think that Trump truly believes the 2020 election was stolen from him, and anything he thinks he can do that would have corrected that he wants to do. Now, that's giving him the benefit of the doubt. But I do think he truly believes it, and a number of people do. Personally, I'm not absolutely 100% convinced about the outcome of that election because there was so many questions during that COVID period and the way ballots were counted for weeks, if not days, in some states.
And mail-in ballots, particularly during COVID, changed. In North Carolina, I think about 5% of folks vote by mail, but during COVID, it was, what, 18 or 20% or something
Well,
voted by mail.
what got me though, Mike, was he didn't have a problem with the 2024 election in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I just cannot believe.
Did you ever have a problem the year you won? The years you won?
No, not really, no. But I didn't fuss about the ones I lost
I
either.
understand, I get it.
And that's the problem.
Well,
I mean,
you just did about the one guy, but you did that off the camera.
that's nobody's business, Mike.
But part of the problem came from COVID. A lot of rules were loosened for a specific emergency that were never tightened back up. Be it Cooper's overreach as an executive in the lockdowns, or maybe the overreach of mail-in ballots. At some point, you've got to roll these things back, or better yet, everything is not an emergency.
But Wes, here's the thing, when it did with COVID, nobody really knew what was the right way to go. I mean, you had states all over this
Sweden
country
did.
that was doing all kind of things that were different. Some more restrictive, some not. Like Florida didn't have any restrictions. I mean, it just, nobody knew for sure. So,
And the outcomes were comparable in all places, including places that had no restrictions.
well, you know, Monday morning quarterback is always the best.
That's good for the first 2 weeks, but after a year, it's time to.
We had no idea about it. I went back and read something about what polio back in the 40s and 50s, and you talk about restrictive. Now you were around at that time,
I remember
Roger,
that time. Yep.
and my mom
Summertime
was too.
scared people to death. That's when folks caught it.
There was no swimming allowed. Nothing. Everything was shut down. The movie theaters, everything. So I mean, now we know. So now we know how to proceed with it. And if we ever have any other pandemics like this, that scares me to death. But maybe we'll have more idea now how to handle
I
something
think
like
for
that.
the first 90 days in North Carolina, most of us gave Cooper the benefit of the doubt because we were in uncharted territory as relates to COVID.
I think that's
But
true.
how many hundreds of days did he carry it on after most states had relaxed it a lot more? That's what he's going to get attacked over, not the first 90 days.
All right. All right, gentlemen. 5 months ago, Cleveland County received national recognition for excellence in financial reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. Cleveland County Finance Director Philip Steffen's team was honored with an achievement for excellence. But on Monday, March the 30th, Mr. Steffen was fired by County Manager David Cotton. What happened? Why was Mr. Steffen dismissed? Mike, you keep your ear pretty close to local politics. What do you believe?
Do I have to answer this?
Yes, you do. you are under oath, sir.
Well, I know Mr. Steffen and Mr. Cotton. I've had dealings with both of them in the last 2 or 3 years. Well, the audit was late, as we learned at the March meeting, and apparently the commissioners, some of them at least, didn't know till right at the time or during the time that the audit was late, according to them. And that is a problem. If it's been late since February 13th, technically, with the extensions they were allowed due to the government shutdown and the change in rules at LGC, where it used to be October, went to December, this year February 23rd, it was about a month late at that point. And so that is an issue you don't want to happen. And an audit firm cannot complete its annual audit without a lot of documentation, one of which are up-to-date reconciled bank accounts. And from what I understand, the county was several months behind, and that's why this one large reason why it didn't get done. And this, I'm told, by the way, by county people, this has now been done, and the LGC has the audit. And I will say this, from my experience on the LGC, as long as it's a one-time blip and they've got it in now, and it was just a month or so after the actual deadline, it's just a kind of a don't do that again thing from the LGC, as long as it doesn't become a habit. And I think that probably will be the case, given the fact that you said the county has not too long ago received excellence awards for their accounting. But so why was he then dismissed, the finance director? Well, in our form of government in North Carolina, guess who the finance director reports directly to and is hired by is the county manager. County manager, generally speaking, has the authority to hire, fire, discipline in whatever ways are statutorily permissible. And so all we can assume it is in the manager's mind that this was an inexcusable event, and so he terminated the gentleman, and he was an at-will worker. I would say if I came all the way from the state of Washington like Mr. Steffen did to take a job, I believe I'd have wanted a contract of some kind. Of course, it would have still been for cause, and generally speaking, he could have still been fired for cause, even with a contract. But I hate it for him. I think he's a good, decent fella from my dealings with him. I think Mr. Cotton's a good, decent fella. So that's an internal county thing that I really don't have enough information about to speak definitively about. Others would ask the question, though, well, if the finance director reports to the managers, is the manager not supposed to oversee, to ask before the fact, or how are we doing on our audit? Are we going to be on time? Make sure. On the other hand, it's always been on time, so you assume it's going to be on time. So I don't know the answer, but whether the manager has anything to account for, that's not up to me. It's up to the Board of Commissioners of 5 people, because that's who works for them, is the manager. But it's a regretful situation, but I do think it's a blip, and Cleveland County will be fine.
All right. I didn't know that about the financial director. I do know in the school system, the only person in the school system the superintendent can fire without the authority of the board is the finance director. That's the only one.
Well, as I understand it, in county government, municipal government, the managers have broad authority for hiring and firing. There are some people they don't in county government. It's more hybrid.
Some positions.
Like the county government has people they have to appoint that the manager can't, like the tax assessor.
Okay.
And I think the tax collector. And the health director, at least it used to be that the board had to do, well, it used to be the DSS board, not DSS, the health board. Now it would be the county, because you remember they've taken power away from those boards and invested it in the commissioners.
All right. Andy, what are your views?
Oh my goodness, Roger. This finance director getting an award for being a great finance director, sort of like me getting an award for having legible handwriting. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I don't understand exactly what all transpired. I'm kind of like Mike. There's so much of this that we really don't have that much information other than just, I know the county commissioners weren't aware of all this, and that is a major problem I have.
Although Mr. Stefford says they were. But,
Yes, he does. I mean, so he
During
said,
an
she
agenda
said.
review immediately before the meeting.
Okay.
So that's what that's in all of this. Somebody had a role, and Mr. Steffens is the one that did. Mr. Cotton, that could be, you could say, maybe has some culpability in this, but that's going to be up for the county commissioners to figure out.
Right. All right. Wes?
Well, I agree, there's an awful lot we don't know and can't speak to, so I'm just going to take what we do know. When he was hired through a pretty thorough search process in 2004, less than 2 years ago, County Manager David Cotton said he's an exceptionally well-rounded subject matter expert who has demonstrated a track record of successfully implementing complex financial and budgeting plans. So this came on the heels of the audit that was filed past the deadline. Surprisingly to me, the audit was wound up being filed only one day after the county commissioners meeting, which can't help but wonder, had the audit been completed earlier, but for some reason just not been filed? No way of knowing. But I guess the biggest concern at this point, over the last 2 years, we've lost quite a few department heads. Some who have left, or in this case, been forced out. And that's of concern. It just seems like a lot of overturn.
lot of turnover?
Here. Yes.
All right. Mr. Stafford, we wish him the best in whatever the next chapter is in his life. All right, fellas, let's go to the lightning round. Andy, get us started.
All right. I mean, we worry a lot of times about whether people are going to be involved in various things, including church. This is something that's fascinating to me. In the Catholic Church so far this year in America, they are up over 38% over where they were this time last year.
You mean membership?
New members, not just new members. They are the fastest growing of any of them right now. And I just think that's fascinating because they are the oldest. Like one Catholic said, they're the people with bells and smells. So I don't know if people like that kind of structure or not.
Percentages can be deceiving. They could have had 12 last year and 17 this year.
Well, just in Los Angeles alone diocese, they had 8,000 new people join the church. So I don't know.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. All right, Wes?
Well, Mr. Harris, you'll appreciate this. This week we mark the 250th anniversary of the first domino falling, leading directly to the Declaration of Independence a few months later. On April 12th, North Carolina became the first colony to direct its representatives to vote in favor of independence from Britain. Other colonies quickly followed suit, and on July 4th, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. So as we celebrate the semi-quincentennial this year, we need to remember that it was North Carolina who was first in freedom.
All right, and the Halifax results are back in the state right now. All right, Mike?
Well, later this month, the legislature reconvenes and the House Select Committee, or not the Select Committee, the House Committee studying property tax reform in North Carolina is likely to ask the General Assembly to pass a bill to put a constitutional amendment on the November ballot to limit the annual amount of increases in property taxes in some way. Predictably, the cities and counties and their associations around the state are mostly opposed to any reform. Imagine that, Andy.
Imagine that.
Some of the very commissions and city councils that are guilty of egregious failure to lower the tax rate in high valuation years are the very ones now saying that the sky is falling. Chicken Little is back.
Good gracious. When Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote her book on Lincoln's cabinet, she titled it Team of Rivals. I imagine most of you have read that book. I think historians 100 years from now, when they write about Trump's cabinet, will maybe title that book The Squad of Screwballs. The latest example, top Trump FEMA official Greg Phillips recently told the New York Times that he had been teleported against his will several times. Now, to be teleported in an agreement is one thing, but against your will, that's got to fry your shorts a little bit. Phillips claims that in 2025, his car was lifted up while he was driving and transported 50 miles instantly to Rome, Georgia, to where? A Waffle House. Phillips said that teleporting is no fun. And the man who thinks he has been beamed up by Scotty to a Waffle House is a top leader in FEMA. Western North Carolina, I think we have found the problem. We hope you've enjoyed yourself today and learned a little bit. Look forward to seeing you back next week when the regular teacher will be here. Have a great week.